Wind power is the ability by threat, force, or occupation to gain, sustain, and exploit control over land, resources, and people. Our Army provides the United States with a campaign-quality force able to secure, seize, and occupy terrain, sustain itself, and enable our unified action partners to interact with, secure, or control populations. When necessary, the Army conducts large-scale ground combat operations on land to achieve strategic objectives and impose our will on enemies. No other force has this capability. That's that is the very first paragraph in ADP 1-0, which is just the Army. A couple of pages down, there's a quote from the Air Force Chief of Staff. You don't dictate end states from the air. You can't control territory. You can't influence people. You can't maintain lines of control after you've established them. That will take a ground force. ADP 6-22 defines Army leadership as: leadership is the activity of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation to accomplish the mission and improve the organization. I hope that something I say today can, if not a spark of fire under everybody, at least yourself, because it is on you. If not at the larger levels, your platoon can be highly motivated and morale can be high, and it doesn't take a fucking pizza party to do it. I have behind me the different levels specific to your situation in Korea, and kind of the mission and why you guys are there. I hope to be able to add some perspective. I don't know it all. I'm coming up on 7 years in the Army, and it's all been like at the operational level, so it's not like I can see things firsthand from these levels to give a little bit of perspective, but I read a lot about it. The Army truly is my life, and so I hope that some perspectives I have can begin to motivate, and if not as a reminder, or if not to teach you, just as a reminder then. Maybe you know this, probably some of your soldiers don't. But anyways, I'll start. There's a quote in this book I've been reading for the past like 4 years, but that's a story in itself. But anyways, there's a quote from General Norman Schwarzkopf, who was a CENTCOM commander during Desert Storm in 1990. But when he was a platoon leader early, sometime in this would be the early 60s, I think, or 1959, something like that. He's a platoon leader in the 101st in Fort Campbell. Anyways, he says, one of the first lessons I learned is that there was no single way for a leader of a small unit to command the soldiers' respect. You had to address each person in terms he could understand. The college kids were pursued by logical explanation, the farm boys by common sense, and what the dropouts understood was their leader's size and strength, and the fact that he could be one tough son of a bitch. And I haven't seen you now it's been 2 years, or a year and a half, and so I don't know if you've gotten real big in that time. I think I see that you're running a lot. I don't know about that last one, but I think that you definitely have the intellect to find a way to motivate each of your soldiers in a way that he can understand, or she. I don't know what your platoon looks like. I don't know what the dynamic is. But anyways, starting at the very top, I have the Pentagon and the Department of Defense and ADP 1-0. I highly recommend that if you haven't read this, to go give it a read. It's I don't truly remember, but the first chapter and the second chapter, I think that's a lot of good information. And I'm sure the rest is too, but I haven't read it all. Anyways, this is starting to drag out, so I'm going to try to be a little more succinct in what I'm saying and move on. So again, at the top, ADP 1-0, it's the Pentagon. That is all the decision makers, the policy makers, and what the Army really is. But to add some perspective of who else gets a say, and what the goals are, what the pushing is, I've got each level. U.S. INDOPACOM is the oldest and largest combatant command, if you didn't know that. It covers 2 out of the 3 largest economies, 3,000 languages, 36 nations, 50% of the Earth's surface, and 60% of the world's people. That applies to USERPAC, the next level down as well. But I believe US Indo-PACOM is always run by a sailor, and that it's an admiral at the top. I could be wrong on that, but ultimately this is like the who decides we're going. Well, it's the Pentagon decides we're going to war, but these guys have a lot of influence in those conversations. The goal there, what are they right now? Enhance stability, and the way to fight wars is by not fighting them and just being that deterrence. And as you can see, the very next one's deter, but enhancing that stability is making sure that no wars are fought. Like if you're seeing in Syria now, it's basically what happened in Libya and in Iraq. Gaddafi was a piece of shit. Saddam Hussein, piece of shit. But they offered stability, and even a bad leader is, in a way, a good leader for that nation's situation. And Syria right now is seeing what's supposed to be the new coming and the new wave of like good Syria. Not to get into my own current situation, but any leader is better than no leader, because right now it's a mess. I'm seeing it all happen, honestly, hour by hour. It's very busy. It's 4 a.m. It's just 3:54, and I've been working on this a little bit before recording, but anyways. Right, so enhance stability. With allies and partners, we will enhance stability in the Indo-Asia-Pacific region by promoting security cooperation, encouraging peaceful development, responding to contingencies, deterring aggression, and when necessary, fighting to win. That's that. Moving on. USERPAC gets a little more involved in the North Korea, or excuse me, the Korea rotations into deterrence for North Korea, right? So I've got deter aggression for USERPAC, and nuclear armed authoritarian DPRK's belligerent, disruptive behavior, including increased missile testing, underscores potential for crisis with clear implications for counter weapons of mass destruction and non-combatant evacuation operations, which now I know what NEO means. Like, I know you told me, but I know why it's called NEO now. But that's why, is to deter North Korea. You may see it as like, oh man, I gotta go to South Korea and live. Worse than the guys that have it there, is my understanding, is that you guys have got more just kind of bullshit to deal with. But North Korea sees it as not setting up across the world, but setting up across the street. I'll refer back to ADP 1-0 briefly. The nation's need for a capable, ready army is enduring, even if it has not always been a priority. During important moments of our nation's history, such as the beginning of World War II and the Korean War, ill-prepared army forces sacrificed at great cost to buy time while the nation went through the deliberate and time-consuming process of properly organizing, equipping, and training sufficient ground forces. The first battles ended badly. U.S. forces in the Philippines and Korea suffered painful defeats in large part because they were not prepared for war. While soldiers fought valiantly in both places, they were not ready for combat. Given the lessons of our own history and that large-scale ground combat against a peer threat is no longer unthinkable, it is our moral imperative to ensure that we send no soldiers into combat unless they are properly equipped, trained, and led. My takeaway there for the USERPAC level and the career rotations is that you're fighting a war by not fighting a war. And although there's, man, I can't remember what I read, some 1,000 soldiers in the 8th Army, that is all logistical and support. You've got like ADA there, but you are the maneuver element in the Korean Peninsula. You are the deterrence from North Korea mobilizing and crossing the 38th parallel in the demilitarization zone. That should be motivation itself, I think, right? And the point of all of this is that you are currently doing what the Army's asking you to do. And it's just, I hope to drive that home, right? It kind of falls on deaf ears to say like, well, this is what we're told to do, so we're just going to do it. But that is the mission. We're not at war. It's just a bit of a Cold War and trying not to fight that war. What happened in World War II in North Korea is we didn't have the army being ready. That's why I chose to read that paragraph to you, is the army wasn't ready. The army wasn't there. Instead, like I said, instead of setting up across the world, you're set up across the street. First Corps. Admittedly, I don't know shit about these guys, and I worked there. Not there, but I have written, America's First Corps will deploy, fight, and win decisively in any environment to enhance security and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. That's about it for the mission statement. They don't have a website that I could go and kind of click on, which actually takes me back. USERPAC and US Indo-PACOM both have very interactive websites that have just a lot to learn. Click around, see what's really going on. I have the USERPAC one still open because I wanted to bring it up. Excuse me. Our approach has a tab that has war fighting, campaigning, and war gaming. And I left open the experimentation tab. So, although some of the training may be the same thing you'd be doing on Fort Lewis, or nothing special, or this or that, whatever, in the experimentation tab, we include experimentation in every training we conduct. We contribute to future readiness by partnering with Army Futures Command, Projects Convergence, in support of US Indo-PACOM specific multi-domain training and experimentation capability, PMTEC, to experiment the regions, yada, 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 yada. When I was at Fort Lewis in the 23 DED, I had influence at this level during multi-domain operations, doing training and experimentation. I influenced decision-making at the Forces Command that rewrote the book for SIGINT and EW. And that was implemented over the past few years. It's already changed because Army, man, what is it called? Something Army 2025, and the Army decided to change again just in the past couple of years. I did that exercise in 2020. So the experimentation tab. You guys are learning, yeah, a lot of the same shit, and the environment might be pretty similar being in Washington to Korea, but that's not always the case, and I guess this applies a bit more to like the guys from Fort Bliss and Fort Hood that roll out there. They get to learn the environment, they get to learn tactics that will work there. The 7th Infantry Division. I recommend reading about the 7th Infantry Division's history, involvement in World War I, II, Korea, and then they stayed in Korea and Japan until the early 1970s. Didn't even return to the United States. I learned that just tonight, but heavy involvement, and that's actually a pretty cool patch to wear. I envy that a little bit. My grandpa wore that patch in the late 50s, I think. I don't know. I was very young when he died. Anyways, the mission statement here is, we enable and sustain the combat readiness of 2 Striker Brigade combat teams and a combat aviation brigade. Strategically, we participate in several yearly exercises and operations in support of the USERPAC and the Indo-Pacific region designed to build capability and capacity in our allies and partners. I don't know how much you guys are building up the South Korean Army. I know that's conscripts, and a lot of them are just doing it because they have to. I don't know how motivated they truly are. But I have heard stories that older Koreans are still very, very grateful because they understand what lengths the U.S. Army went to defend democracy and freedom on the Korean Peninsula. And I know you guys aren't as well received now with the younger generation who see as just an occupying force. But in my opinion, that's not for them to say. They can go fuck themselves. There's some 20-year-old idiot that doesn't know anything. Anyways, moving on. 1-2 Striker Brigade. Again, you guys are the maneuver element. There's no other infantrymen. There's no other engineers. You guys are the focus, I guess. You guys are the ones receiving the support. Mission is to sustain a high-level operational readiness and to support geographic combatant commands across the globe. Still pretty vague. And a lot of it is because the Army is designed to fight, where did I read this? But we're not a European army, and we're not a Pacific army. We are an army designed to fight multiple theaters at the same time. And for a while, we didn't fight multiple theaters, but we fought the Afghanistan and Iraq wars simultaneously. And they weren't even over when Syria kicked off. Granted, that was all in the Middle East. Going back to World War II, we did fight in the Pacific and in Europe simultaneously. The 23rd BEB. This unit specializes in combat engineering, including fortification, demolition, and rock clearance operations. Their skills are essential for overcoming physical obstacles and ensuring the mobility and protection of the brigade. Their skills are essential for overcoming physical obstacles and ensuring the mobility and protection of the brigade. I know I don't need to read that one twice because that's probably why you chose being an engineer, but that's like, to me, that's huge. I have a hard time coming up with like motivation for my job, and there's one of me, and what, like, there's 12 Green Berets. There's technically 2 of me, but we do slightly different jobs. But there's one of me, 12 Green Berets, 4 to their CAT team. They've got a PJ, a CCT. Like, these guys are all decked out, and there's one of me. So you think about the infantrymen and the truck drivers and mechanics. That's all great. They all have their piece, and that's motivating. Like, I read the 7th ID, 1st Corps, and USERPAC missions, because everybody has their piece in it. But being the engineers and getting to be out front in whatever's to come, or hopefully not to come, because you guys are there to expedite the process and take it to North Korea and fuck them up, that's awesome. I think that's incredible. When I was going to the 23rd BEB, my dad said he looked it up on Facebook and he was excited for me. And I'm not even an engineer. There's like nothing on that Facebook about the EMI company. Engineer companies and platoons. I don't really have anything for these because I don't know the mission statement. I was reading the Special Forces Engineer Bible, and man, I forgot to look this one up. The Engineer Bible. It's in FM 5 what is it? And 5-34, Engineered Field Data. Apparently that's the Engineer Bible. And I read a little bit of it. I didn't get too into it because you should already be motivated enough to be an engineer. I'm trying to motivate you to be a soldier in Korea now. To be honest, I haven't watched the news and I don't know what's going on the Korean Peninsula or in that area. There's no armistice. The war never ended, and for whatever reason, North Korea is just shitty. That's inexplicable to me because I never worked that mission. Anyways, right? Helps society fight the wars, really fights the wars. Again, I don't really know where core comes into play, but division is the war fighters, right? You got your maneuver element, your badasses, whatever company you're in, and you. Very tiny. I don't know if you can see this from there, but it's a very tiny little smiley face. Should have given it some hair or something. Back to my notes. Less than 1% of Americans join the military. Less than half of a percent of that join the active duty army. The numbers dwindle until they get to you, in your boots, where you are right now. You're serving the people of the United States, and you're living the Army values. If there's nothing else, you should be able to like chin up, chest out, carry yourself day to day, knowing that. Again, the maneuver element. I'm motivated. Like I said, it's been 2 months now. When I found out you guys got to Korea, I'm jealous. I wish I'd have got to do that. As far as motivations for purpose, that's kind of all I got. I've got what I think is a tool to provide the direction, and then the motivation. You have to. There's no motivating soldiers. Soldiers motivate themselves. You just have to provide the purpose and direction. Again, hopefully I've shed a little bit of extra light on the purpose, and I have over my this is my left shoulder, but it looks like my right, I guess. Hopefully some of the direction. I don't know the logistics of what's happening over there, but I'm huge on the 8-step training model and using all training to implement it, I guess. Every step, and like actually going through, doing the little stuff every single time makes it super easy when it's time. We go to a range, we have an indoor range across the street from my battalion, and we will do full battle rattle, full PCCs, PCIs, make sure everybody has anything, full loadout on the vehicles, and then walk across, like one guy will drive the truck and we'll walk across the street to an indoor range, take our whole kit off and whatnot, just so it's second nature. Maybe, and honestly, yeah, you can stop watching now if you don't want to hear it, because like I said, that was really the first half of the video. But here's how I think you can implement a little direction and hopefully some motivation to the soldiers. Before that, I'll say a short story. When I was in Delta Company, I got told that I was doing CGPT with the division sergeant, or excuse me, with the division commander. So 06, I was out at the flagpole. I don't know if you've driven by, I don't remember what road it is, but there's a roundabout over there, and then the fire department. I parked wherever, and then was standing under the flagpole. 06, we're just hanging out. I was probably there like 0:45, not wanting to be late. And PT was at 6:30. So 6:30 rolls around, the flag goes off, and since I'm right under it, I'm just like super awkward, you know, facing the pole that's probably a couple feet in front of me doing the salute and whatnot. And the only one there, 6:30 comes and goes, flag goes off, they play reveille. Across the street and across the parking lot, I get a "Hey you, what are you doing?" And I didn't know who it was, but safe to say I knew who it was. So I started hollering back, and he said, "Come here." And it was former Command Sergeant Major Bulmer. I don't know where he's at now, and maybe he's still in the Army, maybe he retired. But he said, "What the hell are you doing?" I told him I was doing CGPT this morning at 6:30 by the flagpole. And he said, "Yeah, that got canceled. You're not doing that, but you can do PT with me." So I got to one-on-one with the division sergeant major, and PT was cool, whatever. But this was an hour and a half of getting to like kind of shoot the shit, but also pick his brain, which I can't recommend enough. I really like picking the brains of the more senior NCOs. Not all NCOs are worth hearing, in my opinion, unfortunately. But some of the more senior NCOs, any chance I can get to talk to first sergeant and pick his brain, the team sergeant I'm attached to, sergeants major, senior officers, just pick their brains and see what you can learn. Perspectives, lessons learned, etc. So I asked, don't you think this is I've gone to the board just so I could not do that again. And I just didn't feel like I was ready, and so I went in, kind of deliberately fucked that up. And anyways, I was just asking, like, "Hey, Sergeant Major, don't you think we're promoting soldiers too fast?" I had NCOs that were in the Army for like 2.5 years, where I was going to the board at like 1.5. I was not ready to be going to the board, going to BLC, and becoming an NCO. They considered me a high performer, but there's no amount of training that can replace experience. So I asked, don't you think it's happening too fast? Like, what the hell is going on at the NCO Corps, your NCO Corps? And he said that, well, you kind of have to, because we just wouldn't make numbers otherwise. So that's a fucked up answer, Sergeant Major. He's like, well, what also has to happen for some of these guys to learn responsibility, and I disagree with this still, but he said you promote them to give them that bit of responsibility. I'm a big fan of specialist team leaders, because you can give them that chance to let a fire under their ass and tell them they need to figure it the fuck out, because now they're responsible for other soldiers, without promoting them and then fucking up I think it's a snowball effect. If you got a shit NCO and you're not learning from them, you can learn more from a bad leader, because you learn the wrong way and you'll teach yourself the right way. But some people just don't have the capacity to do that, and then they just become shells of what my opinion of an NCO should be. I know I'm talking the enlisted side, right? And I'm going to return back to the officer side very, very soon, or just a leader's perspective in general. But the key thing, and I asked the team sergeant I'm here with, I read about it, Army perspectives, and I asked around a little bit before making this video over the past day and a half, 2 days, whatever I said I was going to make this video. Giving responsibility is the way to motivate a young soldier. Most guys think like, oh, I gotta go fucking sweep the hallways, you know, or I gotta clean the laundry room. It's like, this is fucked up, man. I'm doing it for the whole hallway. I don't care about this vehicle or like this and that. You give little bits of responsibility, and this is probably something you already know, right? But again, I'm gonna hopefully teach something that I hope I teach you something. Anyways, the responsibility thing is giving soldiers a chance to do something kind of on their own, but then also holding them accountable. When I was at the airborne school, there were Marines there that were less than impressed with some of the things the Army was doing. To include myself, I truly still recommend the airborne course, or the airborne school, but there were some things that were like, fuck, dude. Then they started kicking people out. The Marines were actually like happy to see that, and myself as well, because it means standards are being upheld. And that is motivating to see that there's a standard that not only am I capable to meet, but it's not just getting handed out, it's not cookie cutter, and there's some sort of accountability. That's where specialist team leaders kind of suck, because it's hard to have specialists correcting specialists who are not meeting the standard on whatever tasks there are. Task condition standards. But anyways, you guys are the shit though, for sure. Sorry that I can't come up with anything else more clever right now. It's been a long day. I'm about to go sleep for a couple hours before another long day. I'm jealous. I wish I were there with you guys. I wish I could come help. There's more to morale than just working, but people want to do Army shit. Ask your soldiers why they joined. Why are they there? Are they just there for the paycheck? They just trying to earn the GI Bill? Mostly the guys that want the GI Bill still wanted to do some Army shit in the meantime. Like, they want to be outside. They want to be training. They want to do good training. But being out training without a purpose is not good, and that's not good for morale. Again, that's firsthand. I've seen dumb-ass training, and I've seen how it affects, like, the whole. Train the trainers is huge. Give the responsibility. I know it works. And then hold them accountable. That also is what's major. I don't have it pulled up anymore. But what affects morale, this is the Army's definition now, but what affects morale in the Army is mess, like food, chow, and whatnot, military justice, billets, supply, and mail. So make sure you guys are getting their mail. I don't know right now if I'm going to put this at the end or the beginning, but I've been thinking about this the past couple of days while slowly editing that video. But I don't know how to be a platoon leader, and you and I have got very different armies and Army experiences. I struggle with delegating, and I have the call it a privilege of being able to be present and hands-on, where I understand it is like your job is overall intent and just disseminating information and tasks, and ultimately that's what all of this kind of is enabling your soldiers to have a reason, like they're being counted on for XYZ, and that's the overall message I'm trying to send, is to give the responsibility away, which I admittedly am not very good at, And even when I try, I'm present for it. So do with this what you will. Use it or don't. End of the day, I just hope that you have good NCOs, and that's all the perspective I can really give. Retrain. All right, I said retrain. The ninth step and the 10th step out of my 8-step training model is recover, which is huge when you're actually deployed. Is our vehicles are ready to go at a moment's notice, because we come back, we fuel them, we recover any water, we recover any MREs, we recover any ammunition expended, any markings, what the fuck else do we have? That's pretty much it. Is in making sure the recovery kits are good to go, med plan's good to go, everything is set. So we get the call at the moment's notice, we can deploy. From a deployed location, we can go to fucking war. So recovery is huge, and you can, you can divvy up a lot of that responsibility, and it's going to take a few times to get your platoon sergeants, your seasoned NCOs to be like, this is what right looks like. But once you do it over and over and over, every soldier in the clique, the squad, the platoon, the team will know what has to happen and can just start executing autonomously. Record. Training's no good if you can't circle P for proficient and tell the commander, who can tell the BC, who can tell the brigade commander that our platoon needs to lead the way if anything were to happen on the Korean Peninsula. Next, that wraps up my 10 8-step training model. Next, I'm going to show you this tool that we use in the Special Forces community that is just phenomenal. And a lot of it's going to reference Chapter 2-12. It's an op board, which I know you're familiar with, but are your soldiers familiar with in the Ranger Handbook? If you don't have one of these, you should have one of these, and every single one of your soldiers should have one of these. They're like $10 at military clothing sales. There's no and. So we've got this matrix up here. First is your task word. Ask the seats what vehicles are going, so that way immediately you know who's responsible, who's the driver, who's the TC, who's the gunner for each truck, and who knows, okay, I've got minimum those tasks, right? Ammo's prepped, windows are wiped down, it's been PMCS'd, did a good walk around, we've got a recovery kit, we've got fuel, we've got sustainment. Everything's set, right? You've got your task order. Responsibilities are already assigned based on that situation. What is the weather, friendly, areas of interest, area of operations, enemy forces? What are we getting into? If you're just going to a training range, a lot of that is kind of overdoing something that is generally routine, and it just comes straight out of the Ranger Handbook. We go to a machine gun range, and our enemy forces is like the IRS, the ATF, beta males, fucking the government, you know what I mean? And friendly forces are the boys. Area of interest is going to be what range we're going to. Areas of influence are going to be how we're getting there, and then like the hard structures there that we can hang out in between firing iterations. Mission, what's the actual fucking task at hand? What are we going to do there? And then again, straight out of the Ranger Handbook. I don't have it memorized, unfortunately. Maybe I should, considering how often we do this, but just straight out of it. What is the mission needs to be briefed? You can disseminate each of these. One, you can disseminate this block, this block, this block, or you can disseminate each piece of it, right? One guy can brief weather. One guy can brief enemy and friendly. One guy can brief where we're going. One guy can brief routes, which routes is a major plan. Everybody should know the route, right? If you haven't read about the little groups of paratroopers during D-Day and how the entire plan, the entire mission was briefed to the absolute lowest level, expecting that a mass amount of soldiers were going to
receive or succumb to casualties, right? Units were going to be a mess, but the highest ranking was going to lead the way, and that could be even a private first class because everybody knew the mission and it was briefed to the absolute lowest level. Execution. How are we going to execute it? Again, straight out of the Ranger Handbook. All I can say is reference that. I'm sorry I don't have it memorized. It is almost 6 a.m. My brain's a little fried. Sustainment, right? How much fuel, how much MRE, how much waters? Are we bringing cots? Are we remaining overnight? What do we have as far as a packing list? Can we sustain our vehicles? What's our recovery plan? Is there a wrecker stage? Do we have somebody prepared to come and receive us? Can we self-recover? Do we have ropes? Do we have a winch? Do we have a jack to recover and put a spare tire on if a tire goes flat? Command and signal. Command and signals to include like running passwords, challenge and passwords, what frequencies we're using, pace plan, excuse me. All of that. Again, straight out of the Ranger Handbook. This is all in the Ranger Handbook. And each one of these can get divided by either, 8 soldiers, or you can divide it against like 16 soldiers, or even 24 soldiers, just dividing each of these up separately. Well, technically not 24 or 16 because this one's empty. Timeline, right? Your platoon sergeant should be pushing timeline. What time is weapons draw? What time is SP? What time is range hot? And make sure that those are actually fucking adequate. A soldier, right? Privates can come up with that, what they think, and implore them to do so. Give them a chance to do what they think is right, and then give them a chance to try and meet that, right? I believe that weapons draw should be no less than 3 hours before range hot. Like, no less. And that's assuming that the range is like on base, not outside of the gate, and a 30-minute movement. That's assuming it's close. That gives absolute adequate amount of time that everything is ready, so when range hot is called, you're firing within minutes. Right? Everything is staged, everything is ready to go. You're occupied well before, everything is good. Fire extinguishers, your range safeties are out there, everything is briefed. There's so much responsibility to give. Just on this matrix, right? I'll show you real close real quick. And this all just comes out of what is truly the Bible, the Ranger Handbook. Okay, chapter 2, subsection 12, an op order. That's what needs to go in. All right, I really care for you. I hope that the platoon's going to succeed. You've got plenty of time in Korea to have an absolute top tier unit. Again, you are the maneuver element on the Korean Peninsula in the Northwest Pacific Northwest Pacific. I'm proud of your service. If nobody else is and nobody else tells you, I'm proud of it. Outside of looking in, I think you're crushing it, and I have no clue what it's really going like, right? Hopefully you believe that things are going well here. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't.
Sorry, I gotta go to bed. Miss you. You're the shit. You are the boots on ground. You are the maneuver element in the Korean Peninsula and Northern Pacific. I envy you. You guys are gonna conduct good training. If not all the time, there will be value, and this should be the time of your life as a platoon leader. Again, I just wish I could help.